There's a guy named Larry Krasner. He ran for DA in Philadelphia, and a lot of progressive groups supported him. I want to give the Real Justice PAC a lot of credit here. Sean King is involved in that. A number of Bernie alumni are involved in that. And they put forward a big fight, but so did a lot of other great groups, Our Revolution, MoveOn.org, and the list goes on. And so progressives came out and fought for Krasner because he had a bold progressive policy agenda. And it was no question it was bold, but we've heard people say that they're going to be bold when they get into office, and lo and behold, it turns out that they are not. So now Krasner is in office, so let's find out what he's up to. Well, Slate reports, now 2 months into his term, DA Krasner is virtually undistinguishable from candidate Krasner. Here we go. Now we're in the ball game. Now we got a progressive, let's see what he can do to change the broken system. I love this, I think this is a tipping point, because when we actually don't have to beg politicians to pretend to be progressive, they actually are progressive, it could make a world of difference. So let's get to it. Since January, he has told his attorneys not to seek cash bail for 25 charges, dropped 51 marijuana charges en masse, joined the mayor in pushing for Philadelphia to become the first US city to open a safe injection site, a clinic where people can inject drugs under nurse supervision and receive addiction treatment if they choose. And he's suing 10 pharmaceutical companies, alleging their marketing methods have fueled the opioid crisis. So immediately, right out of the gate, not playing around, he said, I'm going to reduce mass incarceration, and I was not joking. I know what conservatives say. Conservatives say, oh my God, the safe injection sites, oh, you're going to encourage drugs. Well, the studies show the opposite. We're actually likely to reduce the amount of drugs taken in the city. And by the way, I don't give a damn what conservatives say. They're not the ones who put me in office, the voters put me in office. I said I was going to do these things, and I'm doing them. I love it, that's a wonderful start. Wait till you get to see what he just announced. But I want to also point out, he got into office, and immediately, Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner ousted 31 members of the office on Friday. That was when he first got in. A dramatic shakeup and the first major staffing decision announced by the city's new top prosecutor just 3 days after he was sworn in. That's the Inquirer in Philly reporting that. You see, when you fire 31 guys 3 days in, from then on, when you send a memo, people pay attention. So now that he's got their attention, he does send a memo. And the memo explains that these policies are an effort to end mass incarceration and bring balance back into sentencing. So how is he going to do that? The most significant and groundbreaking reform is how he has instructed assistant district attorneys to wield their most powerful tool, plea offers. Over 90% of criminal cases nationwide are decided in plea bargains, a system which has been broken beyond repair by mandatory minimum sentences and standardized prosecutorial excess. In an about face from how these transactions typically work, Krasner's 300 lawyers are to start many plea offers at the low end of sentencing guidelines. For most nonviolent and non-sexual crimes or economic crimes below $50,000 threshold, Krasner's lawyers are now to offer defendants sentences below the bottom end of the state's guidelines. So it's a topsy-turvy world. I've been covering politics for over 20 years now, and Democrats almost never do what they said they were going to do. So this is a wonderful turn of events. He said, no, I'm not going to do change around the edges. I promised you big change, and I'm going to give you big change. We're locking up too many people on nonsense charges, including marijuana charges and prostitution charges. Well, I'm not going to do that. Every prosecutor in the country thinks it's a big tough guy move to charge the maximum. He said, well, we're not going to do that. If you want to lower incarceration and want to fix this broken justice system, we're going to do the minimum, not the maximum, on these low-level crimes. And by the way, if you got arrested on a low-level crime and you're middle class or rich, you can just do cash bail and you're out. Well, but if you're poor, even if it was a low-level crime and we don't even know that you did it, you sit in jail for months, I'm ending cash bail. That was the previous story. We covered that on the Young Turks. I alluded to it in the beginning. That's already wonderful. Now, on top of that, he's saying, I'm not going to charge you with heavier crimes than a guy who stole more than $50,000. We've gotten used to this insane broken system where the rich who steal a tremendous amount of money get no prosecution. But if you're poor, you're crushed. Krasner says we're going to flip it. We're actually going to be progressives. In fact, he says, if prosecutors want to use their discretion to deviate from these guidelines, say if a person has a particularly troubling rap sheet, Krasner must personally sign off. So in the past, if you wanted to go below the maximum, you needed to get a sign off from the district attorney. In this case, he's saying if you want to go past the minimum, you're going to need to get me to sign off. And by the way, there'll be plenty of cases where they will go past it because there'll be serious crimes and Krasner will sign off on it. But he wants to make sure that there's serious crimes and we're not wasting the taxpayer money and we're not locking up people and ruining their lives if we don't have to, and ruining the community as well. Now, one of the reasons he does this is because Pennsylvania and Philadelphia in particular were for no reason at all, when they were perfectly blue places for Pennsylvania overall, but certainly the city of Philadelphia had bought into this mass incarceration nonsense and had gotten to be some of the worst offenders of this problem in the whole country. Let me give you that background. The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. It has increased 500% over a few decades. Pennsylvania and Philadelphia have been incarcerating at an even higher rate than comparable US states and cities for decades. A 700% increase over the same few decades in Pennsylvania. And Philadelphia in recent years has been the most incarcerated of the 10 largest cities, yet Pennsylvania and Philadelphia are not safer as a result due to wasting resources in corrections rather than investing in other measures that reduce crime. So another important part of this is, he says, look, we want to prevent crime. Our job is to bring crime down. If you spend all of your money on incarceration, especially on people who either don't deserve it or that is not a good use of our resources, then we can't spend it on actually doing crime prevention. These are obvious and logical, but our system was so broken that obvious policies would never be implemented until now. This is a tipping point, friends. So Memo explains Pennsylvania's and Philadelphia's over-incarceration have bankrupted investment in policing, public education, medical treatment of addiction, job training and economic development, which prevent crime more effectively than money invested in corrections. Now, he's not done yet. This guy is on a warpath, and again, it's refreshing to be able to say that about a progressive who's already in office. Krasner's lawyers are now also to decline charges for marijuana possession no matter the weight, effectively decriminalizing possession of the drug in the city for all non-federal cases. Sex workers will not be charged with prostitution unless they have more than 2 priors, in which case they'll be diverted to a specialized court. Now, Slate further explains this is not to say that all the city's criminal justice players are on board with the Krasner experiment. The leader of the local Fraternal Order of Police, John McNesby, is a vocal critic. He recently warned cadets not to listen to the, quote, dangerous and despicable presentation that Krasner gave on the legal and illegal use of service firearms. McNesby's outrage seems to be about a comment Krasner made about using caution when aiming for a suspect's torso and chest. So he told the cops, be careful, don't always shoot to kill. In essence, and the head of the cops is like, how dare you? Why? Because the training is wrong. The training is shoot, 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 never take a risk with your own lives. Here comes a district attorney that says, you know what? I actually care about the lives of my citizens, and so I'm going to protect them. Does this guy look like he's playing? If you're a cop in Philly, you want to test them? You want to go and do an unjustified shooting and see if he prosecutes? My guess is you don't want to test them. He's going to actually look out for the citizens. I know that comes as a shock for police chiefs like McNesby. Well, sad day for you. He's actually making you do your job, which is to protect and to serve. And to serve. By the way, he's also increasing funding for policing. You should be happy about that. But of course, they can't see straight because they're used to being above the law. Now, finally, let me get to a last couple of points here. In a move that may have less impact on the lives of defendants, but is very on brand for Krasner, prosecutors must now calculate the amount of money a sentence would cost before recommending it to a judge and argue why the cost is justified. I also love this because It's all about framing, and it gets you to think about the problems in the right way. In a very serious matter where, for example, 25 years incarceration are sought and is appropriate, state on the record that the cost of the taxpayer is $1,050,000. That's 25 times 42,000, if not more, and explain why you believe that cost is justified. Because we're throwing people away for 25 years without blinking. He's like, look, at the low end it's 42,000, at the high end it's $60,000 a year to detain these people. So you want to explain to me why this guy, the state should spend $1 million incarcerating this guy? When you think about it that way, all of a sudden they become a little bit more reluctant. And final part of the memo, he writes, the cost of 1 year of unnecessary incarceration at $42,000 to $60,000 is in the range of the cost of 1 year's salary for a beginning teacher, a police officer, a firefighter, a social worker, an assistant district attorney, or an addiction counselor. You may use these comparisons on the record. There's a new sheriff in town. His name is Krasner, and he's an actual progressive. So for all those people who fought to get him into office, thank you. You fought the good fight, and it made all of the difference. And for all the citizens of Philadelphia, hope and help is in fact on the way. I also want to mention Democracy for America that also helped in that endeavor. And finally, for all the other progressive groups that are out there fighting in primaries, guess what? Sometimes you win, and sometimes it makes a giant difference. So let's go get them. The fight has just begun. But it's great to see that now, when we have progressives in office, we too can set the agenda and set a new day in America where we fix this broken justice system. If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.